In Taiwan, board games and TV series are the latest additions to a growing focus on the military threat from China, as more and more of Taiwanese society gets involved in preparing for a Chinese invasion. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. First of all, a big shout out to you, my China Uncensored 50 Cent Army. Thank you for joining Operation Honeypot to fight YouTube's censorship. Operation Honeypot is still going on, so be sure to like this video and leave a comment with the honeypot emoji below. And if you don't know what I'm talking about because YouTube censored my video that exposed their pro-CCP censorship, I'll leave a link to that video below. So, for years, Taiwan has been stuck in the mindset that Taiwan can't win a war with China, so there's no point in preparing for one. One of the leading figures of this defeatism is the former president of Taiwan, the Nationalist Party's Ma Ying-jeou, who was interviewed last year about Taiwan's fighting chances in the face of the growing military threat from China and said the following.
No matter how much you defend yourself, you can never fight a war with the mainland, and you can never win.
Wow, inspiring words. By that logic, why bother defending yourself at all? While you're at it, why don't you unlock your doors and windows and hang a banner on your house that says, "Please rob me"? This is quite a change in tone from the Nationalist Party of former Chinese leader Chiang Kai-shek, which for decades was unrelenting about one day reconquering the Chinese mainland from Mao Zedong's communists after Mao's armies forced them to retreat to Taiwan in 1949 in the face of total defeat in the Chinese Civil War. The nationalist vision of a grand reconquest started to change towards the end of the Cold War, especially as it became clear that they had lost the upper hand to the communists, both in terms of manpower and eventually advanced military capabilities as well. So by the time Ma became president in 2008, the nationalists had adopted a new approach: appease and engage. Ma believed that responding to the Chinese Communist Party's relentless demands for unification between China and Taiwan with expanded ties would be the best option for safeguarding Taiwan's young democracy and preventing a war with China. A war which, remember, in his mind, Taiwan was certain to lose. But this cocktail of accommodation added to a base of defeatism has been falling out of favor in Taiwan in recent years. In early 2024, Taiwanese voters handed the presidency to a candidate that insists on China and Taiwan being equal and separate nations, the third time in a row that has happened since 2016. Both the current president, Lai Ching-te, and his predecessor, Tsai Ing-wen, have clearly stated that Taiwan is not subordinate to China, and that dialogue between the two sides should be based on an equal footing and mutual respect. Tsai and Lai have also reversed Ma Ying-jeou's spending cuts in the military and have reverted the conscription period back from 4 months to 1 year, as well as boosted the Taiwanese armed forces through purchases of new weapons from the US. And it's not just the military that's getting geared up to defend Taiwan. Surveys carried out in recent years have shown that more than 2/3 of the Taiwanese people are willing to defend their island in the event of a war with China. Among young Taiwanese, more than 3/4 are willing to do so. And this isn't just empty talk. Thousands of Taiwanese men and women have signed up with a growing network of local civil defense groups that offer classes in a variety of subjects, from how to best protect yourself and your loved ones in the event of an attack, to how you can help save others that have been wounded in a military strike. The military has gotten involved on the public front as well, releasing an all-out defense handbook that, for example, details how civilians suddenly stuck in a combat area should respond, as well as how to distinguish a Taiwanese soldier from a Chinese soldier. Hopefully both types will look just as cute in real life. Apparently you can tell Chinese soldiers by their sad, vacant stares. I'd be depressed dying for the CCP too. Even the Taiwanese entertainment industry has recently entered the war zone. In the beginning of the year, a Taiwanese board game maker released a new game called 2045 that situates players in the lead up to a Chinese attack against Taiwan 20 years in the future. The game includes a variety of characters, such as members of Taiwan's armed forces, Chinese sleeper agents, pro-China politicians working to sabotage the island's defenses, and citizens picking up weapons to defend their homeland. And somehow, This game is shorter and less combative than Monopoly. That's not the only way Taiwan's entertainment industry is getting involved, though. This year, a new Taiwanese TV series called 0 Day, with a similar backdrop as 2045, is also set to be released. 0 Day takes place in a not-too-distant future, where a Chinese warplane that goes missing near Taiwan provides the spark that starts a crisis in the Taiwan Strait, clearing the way for an imminent Chinese invasion of Taiwan. Such depictions of Chinese aggression against Taiwan would have been unthinkable just a few years back, when open discussions of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan were considered taboo. Because again, why bother planning on defending yourself? If you see a bear in the woods, just slather yourself in honey-glazed salmon and volunteer to crawl into its belly. At the same time, the Taiwanese entertainment industry itself has traditionally steered away from such topics, fearing that they would offend important people in China and then get shut out of the lucrative Chinese market. Boy, I'm sure glad Hollywood doesn't do that. But the fact that both the Taiwanese military and entertainment industry are breaking new ground on the topic of a Chinese invasion indicates that the idea that Taiwan cannot win against China is losing ground. So what happened? How did Taiwan go from this to this? A lot of it has to do with another small state in China's shadow, Hong Kong. You see, for years, many saw the one country, two systems that defined Hong Kong's position within China as a feasible option for Taiwan's future in China as well. According to one version of this model, Taiwan would keep its economic system, its political institutions, and perhaps even its armed forces, but with an overarching union with China. But you know what they say, give a communist mouse a cookie, he's going to want to go back on his word and gain total control over you, with a glass of milk. In 2019 and 2020, the Chinese Communist Party's efforts to overturn Hong Kong's sovereignty under the one country, two systems structure were met with massive protests, which were then violently suppressed, and the protesters' demands for a more democratic and free Hong Kong trashed. Instead, the Chinese government imposed a national security law on Hong Kong. The city-state's political freedoms were hollowed out, and any meaningful opposition to Chinese interference was quashed. Today, a free Hong Kong is like a free lunch. Sadly, there's no such thing. This intense crackdown exposed the truth that any unification arrangement that Taiwan would be able to land with China would leave the Taiwanese at the mercy of the CCP. And that's not a good place to be, not just in Hong Kong. Ethnic and religious minorities across mainland China, like the Uyghurs and the Tibetans, are being penalized on an industrial scale for not fitting into the CCP's vision of a homogenous China under their iron rule. But resisting the CCP won't be an easy path for the people of Taiwan. Former President Ma is right when he says that Taiwan is at a disadvantage against the much larger CCP war machine. The numbers tell it all. In terms of soldiers and most types of military hardware, Taiwan is lagging far behind China. Stupid numbers. Why do so many of them have to be so negative? Indeed, the CCP is already using its vast capabilities to try and soften up the Taiwanese. The Chinese military is taking aim at Taiwan's military vigilance by constantly flying military aircraft close to the island and regularly surrounding it with military drills. Boy, that sure is some great mutual respect right there. Chinese agencies are also trying to sow discord and weaken Taiwanese resolve by spreading disinformation, targeting Taiwanese social media users, and using their financial might to bribe and flip members of the Taiwanese military and political establishment. Which might be part of why Ma's Nationalist Party is backing a 28% reduction in military spending. Well, Taiwan doesn't have any hope of beating China if you do that. But despite the difficult odds facing Taiwan in the event of war with China, it's not a foregone conclusion that the Taiwanese will be defeated. History is full of examples of outgunned and outnumbered groups that were able to overcome a much more powerful adversary. There were the Finns defending their country against the Soviet Union during the 1939 to 1940 Winter War, and the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong holding out against the US during the Vietnam War. And of course, as we all know, Russia just marched into Ukraine and took the Donbass without any issues whatsoever. Just as these groups did, military experts are encouraging the Taiwanese to adopt asymmetric, small-scale fighting tactics to defend Taiwan, rather than attempt to go toe-to-toe with the vast Chinese military. Here, the Taiwanese also have the advantage that there is about 100 miles of ocean sitting as a watery barrier between them and the CCP envelopment. That makes defending easier, as the Chinese military would have to launch a massive amphibious operation if it wants to have any hope of taking the island. That gives the Taiwanese time to identify and target Chinese warships with drones, missiles, and rockets before they can even make landfall. That will, in turn, buy valuable time for Taiwan's partners to respond to a CCP attack. And such partners would probably be reluctant to intervene on the island's behalf if the impression is that the Taiwanese are convinced that they can't win and therefore are unlikely to put up a fight. That's why the growing attention dedicated to the prospect of a Chinese attack on Taiwan from all sides of Chinese society doesn't just force more Taiwanese people to take a scenario like that seriously, it's also a strong message to the rest of the world that Taiwan is not ignoring the threat and is not going to wave the white flag as soon as the Chinese fire the first shot. At the same time, the prospect of facing a capable Taiwanese army backed by well-prepared and highly motivated Taiwanese civilians will hopefully turn the frowns on the Chinese military and the CCP leadership so much deeper than the ones in these handbook illustrations. They won't risk attacking in the first place. And once again, Operation Honeypot is still on, so like this video and leave a comment below with the honeypot emoji. I've left it in the description below so you can copy and paste it. If that doesn't work, you can also use the words honeypot in your comment. I need you, my 50-cent army, to join me in the fight against YouTube censorship. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.